a big yisroel, and l'chayra everything works beautifully. Now let's get to the parts that don't work so beautifully. Another nafkamina, the aliyahs. If you have a shul, and you have a second story above the shul, above the beis hamidrash, above the beis kenesses, there's another floor. Does the aliyah have kedusha? So the truth is, in Shulchan Aruch and Siman Kuf Nun Beis, if you're Aleph, it's brought down a Mordechai suffix. What's the suffix of the Mordechai? So the Gra brings down, it's exactly our question tonight. The second story in aliyah of the Heichal has kedusha, and aliyah above the Azara has no kedusha. So the Mordechai was misufik. Is the shul's kedusha similar to the Heichal, or similar to the Azara? That was the suffix. So it comes out lefi divareinu. We said from the Bach, Rabbi Yaakov Emden, that they say that our shuls have kedushas heichal. So the aliyah, the second story above the shul, should also have kedusha. L'chayre shver. How is it that in many batei kenesses and batei midrashes today, there are people living upstairs? Sometimes the rav, sometimes it's in an apartment building. In a yeshiva, you have classrooms. Sometimes even a gym on a higher floor. Aliyah is niskatshu, there's kedusha to the higher level. If it's dumya dehechel, so how is it? And it's more than that. The kedinim of dumya dehechel, the halachis of things that have to be dumya dehechel, extends far beyond the building. But people don't realize, but the behavior that people have, the way people have to behave in a shul, is also learnt out from the Beis Hamikdash. For example, it's brought down in Shulchan Aruch Siman Kuf Nun Aleph that to go to sleep, Shina, to go to sleep in a Beis HaKnesses is also even ara, even to doze in a Beis HaKnesses. In a Beis HaMedrash, people will learn there, so it's mutter, Shina's arai. But to go to sleep in a Beis HaKnesses is also. The Ber Heitev in Siman Kuf Nun Aleph brings, Chayiv Ligar, we're supposed to scream, Ba'oisam hayeshenim bebeis haknesses, kol shkein oisam hayeshenim b'shas hadrasha. He says, you have to stop them. Sleeping in a beis haknesses, that's also, sleep in the beis hamikdash. Not only that, but speaking, sicha, talking, I'm not talking about talking by davening, but talking not during davening. In a beis haknesses, it says it's also. Tzarchei mitzvah is different. But shmuzing, talking in a beis haknesses, it's also, it's covered beis hamikdash. Again, in Siman Kuf Nun Aleph, it says that sicha b'teila, not during davening, is also in a shul. What's going on? It's enough. You'd bother me not to talk during davening, but not to talk not during davening. So how is it if it's dumya the beis hamikdash? It's interesting. When I was a chassan, so when you're a chassan, you still go out with your wife or your kala. So my wife liked to go to the library in Manhattan. There's a Judaica room. So I used to go with her. It was great. I could take out a sefer, sit and learn, and she read. It's the best type of date, right? And it struck me, the reading rooms in the library, they're so quiet. You can hear a pin drop. So I was looking around where the stender with the rav up front was saying shush. It wasn't any. So I once asked somebody, why is it in the library there's no shamus? There's nobody saying shush. And in the shuls, so you have to shush to get people quiet. He said, well, in the library, people have to concentrate. They have to think about what they're doing. So I told him, in the shuls, people also have to concentrate about what they're doing. He said, that's true in some shuls, but what about a shul where everyone's masking not to concentrate, to talk? So you don't have the chesaron. Somebody once told me, I asked him why he talks in davening, so he gave me a frume answer. He said that he doesn't see his friends all week. Comes, he sees them Shabbos. So the Gemara in Makis says terrible things about a sainei, somebody who doesn't see somebody who doesn't talk to someone for 3 straight days. So it's a terrible madrega. Sainei could be chashud on killing him. So he doesn't see him for a whole week, and he talks to him. So I told him, that's Good Friday night while you're talking by davening. But what about Shabbos morning? What's your excuse? So he turned to me and he says, what do you mean? He says, if you don't talk 3 days, from Shabbos to Shabbos is 6 days. So you get credit for 2 talkings. If you talk at night, you talk by day. Let's get back to our issue. The issue of understanding our batei kenesses or batei midrashes. We had a kasha. The kasha was that l'chayre, there are things we do in our batei kenesses, in our batei midrashos, which are not kehalacha totally. Talking shalai b'shas tefillah. Talking b'shas tefillah, don't misread what I'm about to say, there's no heter. But talking not during davening, according to Shulchan Aruch, is also us. Eating, dozing, or living above a beis hamidrash, what's the heter? Rav Moshe talks about it actually in two different shuvas. In Orach Chaim Chelik Beis, he discusses, I remember, years ago when I went to camp, today the camps are fancier already. When I went to camp, the place we davened was also the hockey court, and the basketball court, and where they had plays. A shul, to play hockey in a shul. What's pshat? So you say, al tanai hein asuyin, it's built on a tanai. Many poskim, most rishonim hold that a tanai doesn't help on a beis kenesses, only b'shas korbanim, it doesn't help b'shas binyanim. So Rav Moshe writes a yisroel. What's the reason that a tanai doesn't help on a beis kenesses? Because it's safe, it's a beis kenesses. It has kedusha. So a tanai doesn't help. So Rav Moshe, let's say you make a minyan in your home. You're far away from the nearest shul, so every Leil Shabbos or every Mincha Maariv every night, you make a minyan in your living room. Does your living room get the kedusha of a beis kenesses? So Rav Moshe, no. Because if it's a shul, if it's a beis kenesses primarily, so then it has kedushas beis kenesses, and then to do other things there is awesome. However, if a person makes the building originally, and he immediately makes it tonight that it won't have kedushas beis kenesses. Now don't get me wrong, you still have to have the proper, it's still a makom tefillah, you have to have the proper cover there to do things that are bizay and are awesome. But if somebody has a room which serves as something else, and you also daven there, so Zok Rav Moshe, so that helps. That helps that Hilchos beis kenesses don't apply. Rav Henkin in Lev Ivra writes, he's writing in Lev Ivra, it's page Reish Chav Ches in the New Prince, writes Rav Henkin, why is it that shuls became called shtibelach? Shtibelach, small shuls are called shtibelach. Why do Hasidim give it a new name, a shtibel? What's a shtibel? Karuhu shtibelach, shalai lavar al dinei beis kenesses. Mitchila, they gave the shuls a name shtibel, not to be over on kedushas. But what's a shtibel without a little herring smell in it, or some coffee in the morning? You have to have the coffee. It's a science. You go to the real erlich shtibelach. They know how to dip the sugar exactly into the coffee. It's a science. That is part of the nature, the atmosphere of the shtibel. So mitchila, they gave it a different name. I once heard b'shem an adam gadol. I don't know if he said it, so I'm not going to say it b'shmai. But I heard it b'shem an adam gadol that today in chutz la'aretz, today in Galus, there's a great need for a beis kenesses to serve an additional function. Once upon a time, Yidden lived in their own country. Everyone was a frumah Yid. The outside influences were limited. Later we went to Galus, but Jews lived in a ghetto. They still had their own community, and the outside influences weren't there. Later, the ghetto walls came down, and Jews lived in communities where at least their house was safe from secular influences. Today, the influences, I don't mean Khalila something treif, but there are influences in the house of the Gashmias, of the materialism of the world. We don't have a fortress which is used, which is a place that's only a Yiddish place. Today we're left only with the batei kenesses and batei midrashes. It's the last fortress, the building where people come in, and it's totally, there's no secular influence. A Yiddish Platz, it's a place where people come, and whether it's for davening or for learning, or whether it's for joining and getting together from a Yidden, even to talk about the events of the day, the beis kenesses serves this additional function. And there was a little, on the bulletin board, they had hung up a little piece of paper asking people to move to the front of the synagogue to daven. And it said, why is it that everyone loves the front of the bus, the middle of the road, and the back of the shul? That was the question. It's the same thing. If a shul is a place to say Kaddish or Kedusha, so the seat closest to the door is the best. But if a beis medrash, a beis kenesses is a place to take pride in, and it's a different thing. Then it's a makayim. You want a seat. You don't want to be in the back. You want to have a proper seat. Let's get back to our first point. I asked the kasha, why was there an ulam in front of the heichal in the beis hamikdash? In the Mishkan there was only a heichal, there was no ulam. Why is there a hallway to the heichal in the beis hamikdash? The Bach, in coming to explain why there's an ulam in front of our shuls, why every shul has a doorway, a double doorway to enter, he explains why the beis hamikdash had a double doorway, and he says, Dr. Bach, if you go to a regular king, you go to the president. You want to go to the king, they don't let you in. You wait outside, and you send it a message, and it goes to the minister. That's how you talk to a king. You don't get right in. By HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he says, you want to daven to me. No intermediaries. You come lifnai v'lifnim all the way into the Rabbeinu Shalom. When you daven, you enter the inner sanctuary. That's why there's a double entrance. To be merames, you're going all the way in. All the way in. Lifnei Ashchina. And that's why in the beis hamikdash there was an ulam in the heichal. In the Mishkan it wasn't necessary. The Mishkan, there was Gilui Shechina everywhere. People knew they had a direct connection to the Rabbeinu Shalom. In the Midbar, they didn't need Chalaynai Shkufim Atumim. There were no such windows. Everyone saw the Ananei HaKavod. But today we don't see the Ananei HaKavod. To appreciate our connection to the Rabbeinu Shalom, so we have this double entrance to tell you when you go in, you're going in to stand dal if name ata imid. When you go into a beis hamidrash, a beis kenesses, you're standing in front of the Rabbeinu Shalom. That's the message of the double doorway.